Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with my Sunday guest, Miss Laura Morby. How you doing, Laura?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing very well. We are trying to do better, not look at each other, but look at the cameras. So yes, we are looking at you folks. We're not looking at each other. It is totally bizarre, but
So weird.
it is very odd. Anyways, I probably won't be able to do it the whole episode, but I'm doing it right now.
I know.
What I want to do here first, Laura, is I just want to remind people that, housing or property investing, or really even home buying, is full of lots of different moving parts. It's usually on the shortest, it's done in 10 days. The longest could be 45 days, maybe doing FHA, things of that nature, maybe 60 days. But because of that, people are involved, time's involved, significant assets are involved, third parties are involved, appraisers, inspectors, lenders, all of that. Surprises happen. So I thought maybe we would just throw out some surprises or curveballs that have happened to us in our lifetime, just to acknowledge that it even happens to us. What do you think?
Oh my gosh. It happens so often that I tell all my clients something will happen.
Yes.
Bet on it. And I don't know what it will be, but we'll get through it. And so it happens so often. It even happens to us when we're doing buying and selling ourselves. And every time it's like, oh, I'm not going to make that mistake again, or better look out for that next time. Now I know the signs of when that's going to happen. Yeah. So there are so many things. So you could have, a house get, we did a beautiful flip and it wasn't in a bad part of town. It was a newer home, 2013. And we had someone come and rob us in the middle of the day. And we were already in escrow. We were about 6 days away from closing. All the repairs had been done. We were just waiting on the buyer to, finish up their loan, fund, sign, all that good stuff. And someone came and robbed us in the middle of the day. And of course, it's a vacant house. It wasn't staged. They came for our appliances. And when they pulled our dishwasher, they pulled the water line and then let it leak. And since we aren't actively up for sale, meaning we're pending on the market, that means people aren't coming through. And since we were in the last 6 days, that also means home inspectors and termite inspectors and like no one was stopping by the property. We were done with our inspection repairs. We weren't stopping by the property. And so it took a neighbor seeing a big river of water coming out of our front door to let us know. And so it had been leaking for days and filled up our entire house. So then it turned into a restoration job. In order to keep the deal and the buyer happy, we ended up not filing a homeowner's insurance claim and we did the restoration work ourselves.
Oh, wow.
But that took, our profit for that deal and really, put it in the toilet. But and then that opens up a whole other can of worms where now the house actually was flooded and we have to talk to the buyer because now the buyer is like, well, now I'm buying a house that was flooded at some point. And I'm not talking, a small water leak in a bathroom that flooded a bathroom. I'm talking like the whole house was flooded.
Yeah. I had a flood one time. A family went on vacation and the hose behind the toilet gave out. It's just old.
Yeah.
And it leaked the whole week. And it got to like 4. It's a little leak, but if it goes for 24 hours for 6 days, that's a lot of water.
There's a lot.
You got to cut up like 4 feet on all the drywall. All the flooring's got to go. Sometimes the subfloor's got to go. That's a big job.
Yeah. So that's exactly what we had to do. We had to cut out the drywall and change out the cabinets.
Now, why wouldn't you file an insurance claim? Because that's certainly what I did. That was, I think that was $60,000 if memory serves. It was years ago, so I could be off, but I'm probably pretty close.
We had enough meat on the bone that, we were not going to lose money and we didn't want for the claim.
Yeah, it would drag on.
In 6 days.
Yeah.
So we did our resto job in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And if we would have gone through insurance, it would have been longer.
Sure.
And then also the buyer was going to be upset that now his homeowner's insurance was going to be different because we filed a claim.
Correct.
And so we just were like, hey, we'll fix it out of our own pocket and we'll move on as fast as we can. So it was just a situational choice. And if it was like, we're going to lose 50 grand here or file a claim, we would have filed a claim and found another buyer.
Yeah.
But this
makes
one,
sense.
it made sense just to do the job and move on. And then there's like weird stuff too, where people find, you're getting ready to close and the seller says, I left my iguana at the house. And then you have to go over and find the iguana and it's on top of their roof. Like there's just weird stuff that it's like, what is happening here? But there's always something weird that happens. And sometimes it's, like I've even had, a client quit their job the day before closing. And so their loan got denied.
Wow. That's a good one.
And they have
Couldn't
to go
you wait
and beg
24 hours?
Yeah. No. And so it was like, hey, we told you don't buy a car, don't go buy appliances and with Best Buy and get a credit card. Don't quit your job. Like that's the whole basis of you being able to get a mortgage. And she just like decided to quit. And so she had to go beg for her job back. And that was interesting. And it's like, hey, just close the loan. And, if you really want to quit, then quit in like a week, but cut it out. I mean, honestly, don't do that either, but my gosh, but I've had stuff like that happen. I've had stuff where, you're doing an off-market deal and we had a seller kind of go a little, because sellers sometimes want to pull out and sometimes get like really weird reasoning for that. Like you stole my mother's ashes and it's like, absolutely not. Like, I don't want to be haunted by the ghost of your mother. And I don't want ashes. Like, I don't know her. I don't have anything like, and I'm not weird like that. Like, no, I didn't, and so there can be stuff like that. And then there's, times when you're buying stuff sight unseen or a tenant is supposed to move out and you have seen the property and then you go do your final walkthrough and they're angry and they've torn the house apart. So there's, my gosh, I can't even tell you how much stuff that there is, whether it's like a traditional retail between a buyer and a seller, or it's, you buying a rental property or you doing house flip. There's so many things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. When I kind of break down the cycle, right? So the first thing, generally speaking, is you write an offer, right? And then you get acceptance, right? That's when escrow's open. I can't tell you how many times over the last 20 years, I thought I had an agreement. It's in writing, but somewhere along the way, the seller gets cold feet or they learn something they didn't know and they kind of like want to renegotiate. Right. So that happens and all the time. Right. So those can happen.
What's your solution for that? Because I know everyone deals with that differently.
I generally believe in good karma and being a good person. So as long as it's not like out, I actually can't think of a time I've said no. I should just say it that way. I've listened every time and tried to do the right thing because I just feel like, hey, if whatever changes, it's not a deal, just back out. I'll get my owner's money back. It's no, I never need that house or that apartment that bad. I'm like, hey, worst case, we part as friends. You learn something, I learned something. Let's go. So I've never taken anybody to court. I've never even threatened to take anybody to court to enforce a contract. It's not worth my headache. No deal is worth that. So I listen all the time, which probably people watching this now, they're going to come back and renegotiate all my deals, but I listen and I'm not afraid to back out. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I think for us, it's situational. So sometimes we're just like, okay, that's fine. Go ahead and move on. Like if someone decides to not sell their house because they, want to keep it in the family, or like, for instance, I had a contract like a month ago and, the guy's kids got in a car accident and it was his son. His son was newly married with a new baby. He ended up getting fired from his job. And then the dad was helping pay for the son's physical therapy. And so he was like, hey, I don't know how much longer they are going to be able to afford their apartment. And I might need a place for them to stay. Yeah. And so I was happy to downsize and now I don't want to. And in that case, it's like, yeah, please, like go ahead.
No problem.
No problem. But in the case where it's like, we had a seller's drug addict son go and still market his mom's house. And then it's so involved, but I'll just really simplify it. But he ended up getting another wholesaler to contract his mom for like an additional $5,000. It was something small. And so in that case, we did enforce our contract. We did put a lis pendens on the property because we, they didn't fill out their contract appropriately. The first time we paid for their probate. So we were already out of pocket, $5,000 for
sure.
Probate attorney. And so in that case, we were like, hey, that's not okay. Like you could have come to us and asked for more money, but you don't go and do that. So we enforced that and we did close on that and buy that house. So in a case like that, we would do that. Yeah.
If I had money out, like if I had real money out of pocket doing that, absolutely. Generally speaking, we don't do the same thing, right? You're definitely doing a lot more off market and probates and things like that. Yeah. I've only done 2 of those, I think, in 20 years. Both times I had to pay for probate. It's And then there's always inspectors, right? Maybe it's when you're selling. I've had a couple when I'm buying. I remember one time, I think I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. I think I'd only done, I might have been my 5th house I was buying as a rental. Right. So I'm still getting bank loans. This is like 2004. So it's not quite crazy yet, but I love the deal. I actually don't pay home inspectors to go to my properties anymore because all they do is scare people and scare me. So I'm like, I don't even want those anymore. I'll have my team go through, right? I don't need this person who's fishing for work to screw up my deals. But I didn't know that then. So he came in and he said the magic 4-letter word of mold.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Mold in the bathroom. I'm like, oh, I'm still new, right? I still got that new investor smell. So I'm like, oh my God, mold. What do I do?
No.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And the bank's like, no loan, right? Because they won't finance a mold. And again, it wasn't an inspector. It was the appraiser, right? So not even a licensed individual. He was appraising the house, but noted in his notes on a picture of mold in the bathroom. So it wasn't an inspector. I'd stand back. It was an appraiser.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude. So again, I invest 2.5 hours away and I'm trying to learn and I'm still new investor smell. So I get in the car the next day, which happened to be a weekend. And I go there, I say, hey, show me. Cause I'd walked the property ahead of time. I still walked all my deals at this time. I'm like, I didn't see mold. Show me where it is. So I know what to look for. So I don't waste your time before, cause I'd already paid for the appraisal. Right. And at this point, I think I'm getting out of the deal. I'm like, I spent $500 to get the appraisal. I'm going to learn something. Right.
Right.
I'm not just going to get a piece of paper, a folder on a deal I'm not doing. So I go out there. He's nice enough to meet me there.
Yeah.
And we go into the bathroom and he points at this little, I don't know, 2x2 or maybe 4x4 section of what is mildew, not mold.
Yeah.
I'm like,
sir.
He's like, that's it right there. I'm like, dude, that is not mold. That is mildew. My daughter's bathroom has that because she freaking doesn't turn on the vent all the time. Right. That is not mold. I could clean that off in 3 seconds. Right. So,
and then proceed to do so.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I actually went to the store, bought whatever the stuff I bought and came back and cleaned it. And I go take a picture. That slowed the deal down like 2 weeks. Cause that jackass said mold. He had to explain himself and this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, if you're an appraiser, don't do someone else's job.
That's terrible. Yeah. I learned that as like a young girl that you never say mold, you say discolored drywall.
Yeah, exactly.
Because unless you're a mold remediation specialist, unless you're like certified to do that, like it's a specific contractor.
Yes, it's very specific. Yeah.
Like you have to be trained for that and you have to test for it. So unless you tested for it and it's mold, you don't call it mold.
Don't call it. That
4-letter
word is bad.
Yeah. That's a big no here too. That's really weird. I mean, mold is not common in Arizona because we're so hot and dry, but that's really strange.
It's really bad.
Sounds like an idiot. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's really not cool.
Yeah. I remember getting the phone call and like losing it. And then finally, again, I thought about it all night. I'm sure I didn't sleep well, drove out there the next day. I get there. I'm like, I'm expecting, mold climbing up the walls and stuff.
Yeah, no.
What? Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's
terrible.
That was bad. But yeah, we got the deal done. I still bought the house.
This is one of the things. See, this is like the perfect example of why I tell my clients that something's going to happen, because you never know when you're going to get like a wild appraiser that says or does something like that. That's crazy. And so you don't know what it's going to be. And it could not even be the buyer or the seller.
It's just some third party just came in and threw a curveball.
Totally. 100%. So,
yeah. And then the other one we can talk about, right? Kind of lock it up, negotiation, retrade, inspectors come through, appraisers come through. But then there's also the financing piece, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. I've had banks pull out last minute. I've had other investors. You've probably had private money investors locked up and then they decide not to play ball. I mean, the money.
Not really. We're really picky with our hard money people. So if they ever did that, we would never go back there to them.
Of course.
But we're really lucky that we know our hard money lenders and our private money lenders, and we don't deal with crap like that. That would be, if you commit to funding our deal and you were going to back out, like absolutely not. But either way, if that did happen, we have other lenders, but that would make me so mad. Holy crap. That would tick me right off.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Has that happened to you?
Not on private money, right? Because again, private money, you vet, do all that stuff. But I've had banks pull out. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Banks for sure. Banks will do that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I have one of my experts on Wednesday, Anna Kelly's buying $1 million oceanfront house in Florida. Emerald. I'm going to get it wrong. Emerald Bay, Emerald Keys. I don't know. Really nice place.
Yeah.
She was fully approved. And suddenly they had 3 named hurricanes in the Gulf. And their bank said, you know what? Maybe we don't want to do this deal. I mean, after final approval, day of closing, she'd already gone to sign. And the bank's like, nope, we're not going to fund.
Beautiful. Thanks.
You didn't know hurricanes happen? I mean,
Oh my god.
Every year they happen.
Oh my gosh. That's
and then
so crazy.
I had house flippers. I don't know if you saw any of this. You may not have, but I'm assuming it happened in Arizona. So the pandemic hits, right? And then I think it was right after the lockdown or the semi-lockdown, whatever you want to call it, happened. All the at least for about 6 weeks, all the hard money vendors pulled out. They're like, nope, we're not funding. We had several flippers that were buying projects that were, left at the altar, if you will. I don't know if you guys saw any of that.
I heard that was happening, but that didn't happen with any of our lenders.
Yeah.
They didn't do that to us. We were able to continue on business as usual. Also, I think that's probably because Arizona is like the wild, wild west, and a lot of, the people that are in real estate are conservative. So I don't think, we didn't lock down for a long time. So that didn't happen to us. What we were all afraid of at the beginning of that was them pulling manufactured, not hard money, but actual, government backed loans, pulling manufactured financing, because that happened during the recession. And so everyone, like we had a couple people that were higher ups at mortgage companies being like, that's going to be the first thing that goes, like, we're going to stop financing on that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be crazy. Cause we were doing, a decent amount of manufactured housing, including a community where we were putting in 51 new manufactured houses. So we were like, oh my gosh, that will tank our whole project. And so that ended up causing everyone to liquidate the remaining lots. And within 5 months' time, our last 5 went on the market. They flew off the shelves. I probably could have sold 50 in one day. Like, it was so crazy. It was like, please tell me you have another. I have a buyer. I need to get, and I'm like, nope, this is it. We sold our last lots. We canceled our orders with Cavco. Like, we don't have any more. And it was crazy. They would have made so much money if they would have kept a hold of them, but because they were afraid of, losing, financing for end buyers, they were like, this isn't a good investment anymore. This is too risky. And so they pulled. So
lots of stuff. And I guess the last thing to talk about is sometimes buyers, the end buyer, life changes, and sometimes they want to pull out, even though it's at the very end. And I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Oh yeah, all the time. And for stuff that you're like, even if they need the house and they want the house, it could be that they're upset or like crazy stuff too. Or like I had one that, this is so terrible, but I had a home flipper sell a house and it was in the middle of Phoenix. So why the heck would that be in a floodplain? There was, nothing like that.
Wow.
And when you buy a house off market, he's not getting an inspection. He's not getting an appraisal. He's not getting a traditional loan. He's getting hard money. He's not inspecting it. He's buying it as is. So when he went to sell it, he put, disclosed to them that he wasn't aware that it was in a floodplain, because he wasn't. I didn't even think of that either as the realtor.
Right.
And I'm like, I like still to this day, this was recently, I'm like racking my brain because every time I list a house, I pull up the FEMA floodplain map and I look at it, and I swear I looked at it and it said it wasn't, but obviously I was wrong. And so what happened is the lender was horrible. This was one of the worst lender experiences I've ever had. And how it first started out, she went on a 2-week vacation and she didn't have like an LOA, a processor, anyone that could help.
No backup.
And so everything just sat, and it was like, oh, I'll call you. I forget where she was, like Hawaii or something. I'll call you from Hawaii. And like no one could get a hold of her. Then she swore she ordered an appraisal on a rush, and it took 45 days to come back. And it was like, okay, what else could go wrong?
Right.
So we're already like 3-4 weeks past close of escrow. The buyer has nowhere to go because they were going to have like an extra month in their rental and then be able to move into the house. Because your first month that you own a house, you don't have a mortgage payment, so they weren't going to have 2 housing payments, and it was all going to work out. But the lender took such a long time that now they have to be out of their house on Sunday. And like, we have no choice. We have to close on Friday. And it was just this huge mad dash. They didn't close on Friday. They wanted to move in early. The seller let them move in early. And then on Monday, we're like, okay, what's going on? Lender's unavailable Tuesday. Okay, what's going on? Lender's unavailable Wednesday. She comes back and says, I'm really sorry, but you're in a floodplain, so you're going to need to get flood insurance. And we need to know what zone you're in. And so you have to get some sort of like elevation cert to figure out what zone you're in.
Yeah.
And that is like 4 weeks out.
Yeah.
And then so the buyer and the buyer's agent are like, we can't wait 4 weeks. This is insane. Like, this is crazy. And then my seller's mad. And then the buyer's agent's like throwing it back at me, like, you guys lied. And it's like, no, we didn't. I don't think you understand how buying an off-market property works. And of course he was retail only. So he was like, what do you mean you didn't have an inspection? And it's like, okay. And then it's like, also like the disclosure statement for the seller to find out is to disclose what they know.
Right.
It isn't like 250 questions where if you don't know it, you have to go research it and find out for sure.
You just don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like what your due diligence process is. And like, why didn't your buyer try to get homeowners insurance within the first 10 days? They should have had that done. That's your fault. And then also when you start to originate a loan, that's like one of the first things that happens is the lender has to check that. And so the lender didn't check that until day 59 of like our process, and then threw it at us. And then, so the only solution was, if we're not going to wait for the elevation cert, is that the buyer's homeowner's insurance company was like, we'll insure the property, but we want it, like, we don't know what elevation it is. So our underwriter is requiring you to get the worst flood insurance, which that was like $6,000 a month. That would be terrible. $6,000 a year. And so I was like, okay, that's insane. And so we were going through like historical recorded documents, because sometimes the elevation cert is filed with deeds like historically. So we were like going back through the county recorder and doing anything we could to figure it out. It was such a mess. But in that case, even that buyer was like, hey, I'm done. They just felt like they were being taken advantage of and lied to. And Like every day it was something new. And but it was because, and this transaction was fraught with just thing after thing for them. And I felt so bad. It was their first house. It was nothing on our side. It really wasn't. Like, we were great. We were ready to go. We did what we were supposed to. It was the professionals that buyer's agent had hired to help the buyer, or recommended, I should say, because obviously he doesn't have the authority to hire, but he had recommended the lender, and it was just a mess. It was such a mess. He recommended the homeowner's insurance company. And so I was like, do you want to use my homeowner's insurance agent? Like, I'm sure he could do it for less. Anyways, we were somehow able to get that done. And that was crazy and terrible. But yes, there's things where buyers change their minds at the last minute. There's things where they find a house that they like better, 3 days before they're supposed to close on ours. And now they're giving us some, baloney excuse.
Yeah.
And there's stuff like that all the time. So I have a lot of gray hairs for this exact video. These problems that come up, I'm usually the one that fixes them. And I'm
that's funny.
I definitely I pull them out with a tweezer because I don't want to have gray hair, but oh my gosh, I've got quite a few. But every time stuff like this happens, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get a couple more gray hairs. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's something I can do to make myself laugh when it's all going on.
I love that. You got to make yourself laugh when you get curveballs like this. So folks, really what we wanted to do here is just let you know that surprises happen. They happen to all of us. When they happen to you, just smile, talk about gray hair, pull them out with tweezers. Apparently that works. Yeah. So again, Laura, how can people follow you, get part of your world? And when is the show premiering?
Oh yeah. So everyone can follow me. My Instagram's Laura Morby, no spaces. Show is going to be premiering Saturday, October 2nd at noon. Strange time, I know, but apparently that's a really good time to do a home improvement show. So at noon, weird, right? If you can watch it,
triple digit flip, right?
Yeah, triple digit flip. And if you can watch it live, that would be amazing, because I guess that matters, and all the stuff that I'm getting to learn.
Yeah, October 2nd, 2 weeks from yesterday, noon. A&E, triple digit flip.
Yeah.
The now famous Laura Morby will be on your TV.
Oh no,
not yet. Remember, snap a selfie with Laura on screen, and she will send you an autographed book with the A&E cast.
I will. Yes, I will.
Thank you, Laura. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.